What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Force Dyad Podcast. This is episode 54. I'm your host, Obi-Shawn, joined as always by my co-host with the most, Jedi John. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm great. How we doing?
Doing great. Much better now that we are in our home studios since our last episode was recorded in the lovely sanctuary that was the San Diego Sheraton Airport Marina Hotel. Oh yeah, now and we've got audio issue. There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. See, I didn't know what to do with my hands, and then they unplugged my headphones. So that's my bad.
But yes, we are in a much better surroundings this go around. We're in our own studios.
I
Here
can
to
breathe.
talk. You can breathe. Oh God, that was. I listened to your Patreon call-in for Galactic Dads, and you were describing the room again, and it brought back kind of,
Some PTSD for you. Yeah.
vivid memories.
It was fine. It was fine. But yeah.
So we've been back home now for a little over almost 2 weeks now, I guess. We got our second sort of SDCC related episode. This will be the last one where we talk the Sunday that we were there, as well as the our trip up to Disney and the fun that was Mosh Eisley that Friday. So I mean.
Yep. Mosh
Yep.
Eisley. Blast. What a blast.
The joys of parenting and the baby monitor. Is that the low battery sound?
No, I lost some connection somewhere, so hopefully my son's alive.
The
We'll be
kids will be
fine.
fine.
We'll be fine.
They will be fine. Just like we were at Mosh Eisley. We
I've
were
still
fine
got
at Mosh Eisley.
I've still got baby number 2 on monitor, so baby
You
number
got
1
backup.
can, he'll be fine.
Do you?
Yeah.
Is it like
Anyway,
a
yeah,
condense-
Mosh Eisley blast.
Or I was gonna say, is it like
Yeah,
a
I
command
mean
zone?
it was
You got both?
it was a picture in picture. There was a second picture with the other kid in there, but that one lost connection, so I had to get rid of it on the screen because otherwise it would keep beeping. So apologies.
Very, very good. So we recapped the Thursday, all the fun stuff that we did, bought plenty. The Friday was much more relaxed. None of this 5:30, 6 o'clock baloney to go get in
I
line.
think
At
that's your
the
fault. It's your fault. You
exhibit
didn't want to do it.
So we did do USS Midway. We won't talk in depth about that on this because it's probably not relevant for the show. But
Yeah, I think the big thing there is just like if you have a chance to go to some historical sites and anything like that ever interested you, I think it was a blast. Like I had a lot of fun walking through. I had a lot of fun seeing the planes and helicopters on the flight deck. But just listening in on the audio tour was a lot of fun. And if you enjoyed that kind of stuff, I think the Midway was a great time.
100%. And it's nice to have those off days of a convention or at a convention to do stuff kind of around the city that you're in. And being where we were there on the bay and having those carriers, because you have the Midway and then the 2 actual active carriers across the way. It was really cool to step onto a piece of history. So yeah, agree. If you're into World War II, if you're into like history just in general, the Navy, etc. Yeah, highly recommend. It's a great walking tour. We spent way longer there than I actually expected to. It's like, it'll be a 2-hour trip, and I think it turned into like a 3.5-hour jaunt. And it was steamy in that ship. I could not. I told you, I was like, I would not last 5 seconds in the Navy. So kudos to our
Itty bitty living space.
servicemen and women who do that, because I don't know how you do that, but
Yeah.
I would not be able to do that. So
Yeah, thank you all for doing that.
yes, very much. But yeah, that night was Mosh Eisley, which we kind of talked about it, I think, in some of the episodes leading up to it. But for those who don't know, it is a emo rock show that is heavily encouraged to be Star Wars themed. It's put on by a number of fellow Star Wars shows: Thank the Maker, Princess and the Scoundrel, Armor Party, which I know is hosted by
Dano
Honda
Channel.
Supply, and then the Dano Channel. And I think there were a couple other, definitely some other sponsors who helped make the
Yeah, the
show.
Dad Batch was there that night. There was a lot of people there.
That's right. That's right. I have seen a bunch of pictures that they've posted. But yeah, so it's heavily encouraged that you show up dressed in Star Wars garb. So Jedi John and I obliged, dressed in our Jedi garb. Although you seemed a bit conflicted because you had your red lightsaber. I don't know what
I'm
happened
telling you,
there.
just undercover Jedi. I can't help leaning to the dark side. It's
You
so
mean
much
undercover
cooler.
Sith? Undercover Sith?
Is it? Yeah, I guess to be undercover Sith as a
You were a
Jedi.
Sith in Jedi's clothing, is what you were. But anyways,
Yeah.
and so the if you there are some really good in-depth recaps with both Thank the Maker and Princess and the Scoundrel. So if you want some like really in-depth behind-the-scenes stuff, be sure to go, if you haven't already, go check out their episodes. It's fantastic.
Yeah, really cool behind the scenes stuff. I agree.
The story of Adam getting to the
That's just
show,
typical travel day. Typical travel day. That's what I'm hearing.
insane. I mean, there were the rumblings when we were at the show about how close it came for him to get there. Him having to ditch mid set, but then listening to the fact that his flight got actually canceled the night before, and he had to scramble to find a flight out Friday morning, makes what they all did that evening that much more impressive. Because it was,
Yeah, good thing he was going. Good thing he was going to the West Coast and not going the other
yes,
way, because it would have been
100%.
it would have been really tough.
100%. I mean, doors opened shortly after 6 for those with kind of early access tickets, which we were fortunate enough to procure a couple, because you're in the Patreon group and really good friends with some of the folks in there. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
But the show started like what, 8:30, I think, and went till midnight.
Yeah, they finally got rolling around 8:30.
And
We went past midnight. We went to like
was
almost
it
1.
past? Oh geez, yeah. The end of the night was because we met that one friendly fella on the sidewalk trying to get home, but I mean the entire evening is just like a pop punk smorgasbord. And what was really cool is they had the theatricals to go with it, right? They had some pre-recorded like movie quality, like studio quality, like scenes that like Nick and William Ryan Key pre-recorded. They had this whole story surrounding, the Empire was kind of searching for rebels located within the show. They were taking over the show basically. They had costume changes, the Narkina 5 One Way Out stuff. Multiple TKs. There was a Boba Fett, a Fennec. There was a Vader. I mean, it was just.
There's Leia Bouche.
Oh yeah,
There's
there was
Bouche.
a Boosh.
No, I mean there was a lot of good stuff. I mean Vader with a couple TKs up on the up on the 3rd floor. Like that was really cool. I think just the whole storyline that they played out that during it was just really cool just to have like as an extra. Something you would expect from a Star Wars themed anything, but it was good. It was good, and it was funny hearing about the behind the scenes stuff about how some of the guys like there's a script here, and then they're reading the script on the day of, like trying to make
Exactly.
sure they get the lines right or whatever at the show. But I think everybody did great. I mean, they were in character when they needed to be, and just for everybody at home, like it's just a sing along. It's I mean, Adam was the DJ for the night, but it was really just a sing along of all your favorite early 2000s punk pop songs. Like if you were into that genre going through, for us, high school and early college days, but if you were into that genre during that time between, I don't know, pretty much '01 to 2008, maybe. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
You push
I
it
was gonna say,
2010.
yeah, I was gonna say '07, '08, but yeah,
Yeah. You know, if you were into that genre, I guarantee 95% of the songs that were played that night, and you would scream your heart out. So it was blessed.
100%. And the costumes, going back to the highly encouraged costume bit, some of the costumes were phenomenal, and I think the the winner for me was the chrysanthemum, the black chrysanthemum cosplay, which was incredible, and the whole Knights of what is it? The Knights of Ren. It's like a My Chemical Romance type play on,
Yeah,
right? Where they
it's like the
got
Knights of the Parade or something like that. Yeah.
yes, like the Knights of the Black Parade or whatever, and they've all got you got your Kylo helmet that's been split apart and reforged, and chrysanthemum, and which I realize is not a member, but like the whole team, the whole crew, their get-ups were amazing. But we got our
And
pictures.
they all had like gnarly instruments. Like they all
Yes.
had gnarly instruments. Like they were like prop instruments made out of whatever they had, like guitars refinished with other like skulls and stuff. I mean, it was, they looked awesome. Like they looked awesome the whole time. And I know the guys from the Discord were freaking pumped about it the whole time. So they all knew that they were going to show up for it. So shout out to Ethan. And yeah, I mean, he was one of the guys that we met up top.
Yep.
It was nice meeting some of those guys too. Like, you talk to them over Discord a bunch, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's who you are. Cool. Awesome. Like, really great to meet you finally. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, and then they're cool to, the coolness carries over into real life, right? Like it's like you've forged this relationship virtually, and then it's like, hey, you're cool over Discord, you're cool in real life. We can hang out, rock out for a few hours.
You make
so.
me giggle out loud on the daily.
Exactly.
It's good.
So yeah, so that was a lot of fun. If I know that they just announced their next one, which will be the weekend of New York City Comic Con. So if you happen to be headed up to New York and this October, and you're looking for a awesome time, be sure to. Mosh Eisley has their own like Instagram page and stuff like that, Twitter, etc., or X, whatever it's called now. It's stupid. But be sure to follow them. And then, like we said earlier, the Thank the Maker guys, Princess and the Scoundrel, those channels as well. There'll be more information as that gets closer, although that's really only 2 months away now. So I don't know how they're going to how they're going to do what they just did in 2 months. But yeah,
I think they've got a lot of pieces they can use probably still, if I had to guess. Like that's the opposite coast. Unless they're already going to the Comic-Con, you're probably going to get 90% people that have not been yet.
True. Yeah.
I mean,
I guess it's just the logistics of getting everything everywhere.
Yeah.
But
figure out all the merch, figure out everything else. The merch was awesome too, I'll say that. But they did a great job with that stuff. But I think they can probably reuse a lot of stuff from that last show, because it's going to be a pretty fresh crowd for the most part. So.
That's true. Yeah. So
and I mean,
so that
2 months after seeing a show, it'd be a lot. It'd be a lot to like, oh, let's jump on for 3 months later seeing the exact same get up for a minute,
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that was excellent. That was a great time. Definitely one of the things I know we were both looking forward to with the trip as a whole, along with the convention. Saturday was Disneyland. I don't know. Do you want to save that till last and then jump to the last day of Comic-Con, since that was kind of a, it wasn't like slow per se, but it was more panel heavy than the first day? Or do you want to go in order, Saturday and then Sunday?
Let's crush Sunday, and then we'll go back to Disney. I think we both had a lot of fun at Disneyland.
Yes.
And Sunday was the last day at the con, so let's crush the last day at the con real quick, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So, we pretty much had the lay of the land going into that last day, right? So, didn't get up early, right? No need to get up early. It was interesting to see what happened as a result.
There's always a need to get up early.
Well, ironically, it may have made sense to get up early because they learned from their mistakes in Funkoville from Thursday and had like
They had a
designated
standby line. What do you know?
standby lines, which was capped at, I don't know, whenever we walked by, it was like
Damn
11 o'clock.
geniuses over there.
So, in hindsight, perhaps we should have gotten up early for you to have a chance at your exclusive pops, but alas, we did not do that. Sunday was very panel heavy. I did go buy another book, from the Penguin publishing folks, Rise of the Red Blade, which is a brand new novel. Centers around sort of a fallen Jedi, like kind of, it picks up actually during or just before the Battle of Geonosis, and then kind of goes through. I'm only about 60 pages in, so I'm kind of towards the end of the Clone Wars at this point. So I'm not even really into the meat of that book yet. I read it on the plane on the flight home.
I saw you reading it on the plane with the dim lights and everything.
Yep, I was like one of the two people who had lights on during our kind of not quite red eye flight home that night. But anyways, so it's an excellent book. There is actually very kind of heavy author's note at the beginning regarding like mental health and the darkness that can envelop someone, and how it actually, there's a character in the story that will encounter those sorts of things, and so definitely not something I was expecting, opening that story. But so that aside, it's an excellent read so far. I would recommend picking it up, but I did pick up that book,
And we met
and
some
then
fans.
we did. Now
We met fans at that one.
You are more skeptical than I am about it.
It is what it is.
Okay,
It's
so the story
crazy
is,
when you
go ahead.
let's quantify it real quick. It's crazy when you're out, and I mean we're podcasting guys, obviously, and then you meet
And we were wearing
a
we were
fan
wearing our
that
garb. We were wearing our garb, so we had our hats on.
we were
we
wearing
had our
gear,
shirts.
hat and shirts on, and then the first guy that was like, "Oh my gosh, are you guys the guys on the Force Dyad?" And we're like, "Oh yeah," and he's like, I listen to you all the time. Like, you guys do a great job. Really appreciate that. Love hearing that. Oh my gosh, it actually like stomach drop moment, right? Like, love hearing good feedback in person from people that we have no relationship with, obviously. So awesome. But then all of a sudden, like, you start having a conversation with that person, and then somebody else tacks on, "Oh, we listen to you guys too," and I'm like, okay, yeah, sure you do. I'm glad. Thank you very much for listening. Like the secondary one was just like, I don't know. I know we're talking about the podcast, and if they're listening right now, I'm sorry. I'm skeptical of everybody because I trust
Shun
nobody.
the non-believer. Just shun the non-believer, because
I
that's
I
like,
trust no one.
we're a very small show, right? We have we have
It doesn't
from
matter how many listens. It doesn't matter. It doesn't
no,
matter.
it
The
doesn't,
fact that
and that's
it,
irrelevant. But
my point was, if you're in real life as a podcaster and you're not running a panel or a booth yourself or something like that, and all of a sudden you run into three people unrelated that are like, "Oh, I listen to your show all the time," I'm very, very skeptical because there's a lot of Star Wars podcasts. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a podcast exclusively on YouTube now that is very similar to our name. It's not the same. It's not, which we talked about. It's not the same.
right.
But at the same time, like, the first guy said it, totally believe him. There's no reason for that. He's a vendor. There's no reason for him to say anything different.
And I
But
was
like
already
all of a
buying the
sudden,
book. I was already buying the book too. Like, it
yeah,
wasn't
oh
like he
yeah,
was trying to
yeah, he wasn't selling you anymore. He wasn't
quantify
selling
that.
you anymore.
I was already buying.
So like, yeah, I totally believe him. The other two, I mean, I hope they are listeners, and I hope they're still listening right now. And I apologize for not believing you in the moment. If you text me, or send us a DM on Twitter or X, whatever it is. Sorry, not text. DM us, slide into the DMs on Twitter, and we'll hook you up with something.
I'll
But
send you a hat or a T-shirt.
yeah, take your picture and send it to us to make sure I know who you are, because I totally remember your faces.
See,
Um,
that's the thing that like I believe everyone. Like I want to believe that we have like random reach. Because I know we do. I see the analytics,
we
right?
do.
And
We do have
uh,
random reach. I'm just saying, I don't think we met three people at the exact same booth at San Diego Comic Con at the same time.
I think it's possible. But anyways, so it was great meeting you all.
Oh, it's
And
fantastic.
to be fair, I mean, we did. It was actually nice having hats and shirts that we could promote. Just walking around the show. This is our first time having sort of
Merch.
merch, quote
Yeah.
unquote merch, which we do have extra hats. If anybody
Oh yeah, if you
listening
want
and
something,
watching the
again,
video, because I am going to post this, there are some hats
slide
available.
into the DMs.
But anyways, talking to people at Disney who saw the shirts and like, oh, hey, do you do this? And we're like, yeah, here's a card, stuff like that. So it was really interesting, just that interaction, because I get goosebumps. And whenever anybody says, oh, hey, I listened to your show, like that is one of those things where, true or not, it's like, oh, this is
It's,
like, I'm kind of giving myself goosebumps now, which is kind of, you know, weird.
it's a
But
great feeling.
it's an amazing feeling that we spend time just you and I chit chatting about stuff we love to talk about, and there are people out there in the ethos who are listening and enjoying our stuff, and we interact with many on a daily basis, or frequently, semi frequently. But to have like just random people that you have no affiliation with at all,
Yeah.
go out of their way to say something like that, again, true or not, it's it's one of those, like, it's a really cool moment. So
Well, that's just like a Disney one. Like, you have random people who walk up to you and like, oh, that sounds like a cool podcast. Like, do you guys run that? And we're like, oh yeah, here's a card. Like, absolutely, give us a listen. And we appreciate all of that, and we appreciate people walking up to us and saying, I listen to your show. Like you said, goosebumps. Like, your stomach kind of drops a little bit. You're like, yeah, I'm not famous. Obviously, we're not famous, unfortunately, yet.
I would
We'll
love
get
to
there,
be.
guys
I would love to have
and
this be my
gals. We'll
job.
get there. But at the same
But
time, it's nice just to hear that someone's out there listening consistently and they want to hear more. So very cool.
yeah, and it makes the effort worth it. So that was neat. So yeah, so I buy this special edition print, signed by the author. I get a really cool Inquisitor lightsaber pin. I was really for the pin that I wanted, but then
The
we hit
pin
up.
was awesome, I will say.
It's really cool. But yeah, we hit up a few panels the afternoon. The first one, it was interesting because you kind of singled it out on the schedule. You're like, oh, I want to go see this villains panel, and I was like, oh yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds awesome. And so let's go. And then well, let's just say it was not what we expected it to be.
If you're named Greg, I'm sorry.
So
Like,
uh, who was on that? It was Michael. I forget
I
his
would have to
last
look
name.
up. I'm so
Well, what's
sorry.
funny
Yeah,
is
I did not.
I
I
deleted
didn't prep
I
for it.
deleted the schedule app thing,
The schedule.
the Schedge app. But so there were five. Well, there were supposed to be five people on the panel. Four showed up. The fifth was a little bit late. But one of them actually teaches here at Webster, which was kind of cool. As I know you're kind of looking that up, but the the opening question that was posed to the panel was, who would you say your favorite, or was it your least favorite? Yeah, your least favorite villain was, and Michael was closest to the moderator, and so he answers first. He's wearing dark sunglasses, and he looks like he'd had a rough night, and he even said so much.
He had a good week. He had a rough week. I think that's what it was.
I mean, it was the fourth day of Comic Con, so I can't blame him. But his answer
Which is
to
what
it
he
was
said.
indigestion, and it
No,
was
no,
one
that
of
wasn't
those.
it. He didn't say that.
He didn't say indigestion.
That was the Webster girl. The Webster girl said that. He said,
Oh,
the Hangover,
Oh,
I think.
that's right.
Or
The
Greg. No,
Hangover.
he said Greg, his brother-in-law or whatever, his cousin, brother. I don't even know what it is.
Yes, that's
Doesn't
right.
matter. Don't be named Greg. That's what the moral of the story from him was. Don't be named Greg.
Yeah. So, and then yeah, sorry, I forgot. It was the other panelist who said the indigestion, but it was kind of that realization that it wasn't going to exactly be the panel we were expecting
That
it
we
to be.
wanted to be. You're right.
Yeah, and oddly enough too. So Kim Joy was one of the panelists as well, who apparently had just written or finished up her own comic book. But I know Kim
Her
Joy
first graphic novel.
exactly. I know Kim Joy from the Great British Bake Off, and before anybody laughs, that is a phenomenal show on Netflix. And if you're not watching it, you should. It is wholesome. It is a great family show. But anyways, she was on it. I don't know, 3 series ago. And I'm like, that can't be the Kim Joy. And sure enough, she walks up and I go, oh my gosh, it's Kim Joy. And she was famous on that show for using like anime, manga, like Hello Kitty stuff in all of her bakes. It was very, there were Asian / Oriental style theming to her things. And the funny thing about it was some of the questions that she ended up getting asked during the panel were surrounding, bakes that she might do to defeat, you know, her favorite villain. So it was much more lighthearted than I think either of us expected from from a panel about villainy or about villains. So I will say there was some interesting exposition on how to write a villain nowadays and sort of what responsibility comes with writing, a person and or a being and the acts that they do, and then how you take responsibility for that as a creator should something evil, truly evil, happen in the real world, that sort of emulates that. That was probably the deepest that it actually got on that whole panel. And how they write villains who do sort of heinous things, right? And it was interesting because they all said to write a villain who is simply just an abomination to be an abomination is it's lazy. It takes no effort, right? You have to have a payoff or a reason for it to happen, which I actually thought was really interesting. Did you find the
Yeah, I think the
information you were
biggest thing too is like what I did. I did finally find it, but because it was the Rogues Gallery, my favorite villain. That was the title of the panel.
Mm-hmm.
And when you read the description, you're like, oh, that'd be so cool to listen to. And then we got indigestion. Anyway, and Greg. But yeah, I think as a panelist too, you get tired. It's Sunday. You've been on probably multiple panels already. You're getting asked a lot of the same questions over and over again. But when you talk about somebody's like my favorite villain, you're like, I'm looking for a comic villain or a movie villain or anything. So, which is interesting. It was Michael Conrad, Rachel Smythe, Steens, Kim Joy, and David F. Walker, which he came in late. He was actually probably the most on topic person because he came in late and didn't get the vibe from the other guys, and he started answering legit questions with legit answers. Good for him. But some of the answers we got were still good. Like, it was kind of interesting hearing and this is not to sound sexist or anything like that, but like it was interesting to hear a women's writer view, because Rachel Smythe obviously wrote stories involving romance and men that are very, very attractive men in order to be the hero in her stories. And it was interesting to hear her talk about what she looked for when she wrote those characters and how they reacted to the female protagonist situations, because she did not want the knight in shining armor to roll in and save the day. She wanted the understanding for him to push her. I mean, I think it was very interesting hearing some of their views on how they wrote and why they wrote their characters the way they did. And I know she had specific questions at her for the books that she's written. So
Yeah.
it was interesting from that point of view, but it just wasn't quite what we were looking for when we were like, I'm excited about this panel. Like, I think it'd be really fun to hear about their favorite villains, because they mentioned, you already mentioned it, like how writing a villain just to be an evil, terrible human being is just lazy. And then you got well, if you write an anti-hero, it's also lazy at this point because everybody's doing it. So everyone's getting oversaturated. So it's a weird balance, and obviously that's a point of contention in movies and comics currently is, do you write a true villain like we know from 30 years ago, or do you write an anti-hero that you can sympathize with? You are like, you are right. Like, I believe in you. And then you see the one heinous act and you're like, never mind. I can't back that. That's where I draw the line,
Right.
So it was interesting as far as hearing them talk about that kind of stuff. But yeah, the overall tone of the panel was off of what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I laughed a lot.
So we did get some good chuckles out of that panel. But yeah, so after that we saw that there was actually going to be Frank Miller panel at noon, and so booked it over there. Naturally, full, not surprising. It was actually in one of the larger sort of meeting halls, meeting rooms, whatever.
Do you have 3 rooms back to back or just 2? Can't remember.
I think it was 3.
It was 2 or
but
3. Anyway, 2 or 3
yeah.
rooms together.
And so they had capped the line, but we saw that they were going to end up having a cover artist sort of panel in that same room afterwards, right? Which had Joe Quesada, J. Scott Campbell, Becky Cloonan, and Todd McFarlane on it. We're like, well, if we don't get into Frank Miller,
we'll watch that.
Yeah, because we ended up being
we were close enough, and we were close enough to the
10
room.
people.
Yeah.
So, and then as luck would have it, halfway through the Frank Miller panel, they end up finding space, and so they let a handful of people in, 2 of which were us, of course. And I don't know how we got we end up third row.
Third row?
On the end, and it's like, although the end was kind of shoved in the middle because they kind of like paired the chairs inward as you got closer to the stage. So we end up third row for the back 20 minutes of the Frank Miller panel, which was excellent. And
even that, yeah, even being in there for 25 minutes or whatever, like, so great to hear him talk about his creative process.
Yeah, and I'm not as well versed in comics. I know Frank Miller from like Sin City, from 300, and like his books that have been adapted to films. And I had no clue, because they're talking about, and I'm a comic noob, right? So laugh if you will. I had no clue that he wrote The Dark Knight. I mean, not just Batman, but like the Dark Knight stuff, which was then taken by Christopher Nolan and turned into the movies. Not obviously. I don't know if it was a direct
no,
rip
I wouldn't
the
like,
way,
yeah, but yes,
but
he
they
still wrote
adapted
Dark Knight, yeah, comics.
Exactly. And so I'm like, look at me, I know nothing, right? And so that was really cool. I was like, oh, I knew he was obviously a famous writer, but I didn't know that. It seems like everybody kind of dips their toes into both Marvel and DC. At least some of the older writers. There seems to be more crossover between the different publishing houses. Maybe it's less that way now, but
I think it'd probably be more now. I think the biggest thing is like if you get hired, you get hired. You know, like
Right.
I think we listened to many even during that. The I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but in that cover art panel, those guys like if you're hired, you're hired.
Hmm.
Like you can't. At one point of your career, you didn't pass up a paycheck. So if somebody wanted you to do something, you hopped on it because they talked about multiple times where, and it happens all the time. Obviously, you get that cover art done
Hmm.
by Quesada or just Campbell or whatever, and you're expecting the inside pages to be J. Campbell, and they are a different artist, and you're like, oh shoot. but but if you get paid for it, you get paid for it. So
Right.
those guys and gals, like they, if you get a paycheck, you get a paycheck. So I don't think it matters who they write for or who they draw for.
True. That's
And
true.
Frank Miller, like he is one of those guys that is legendary status.
Hmm.
With comics he inked, drew, wrote, lettered, had visions for that he didn't personally do, and then taking some of those to movie form. We talked about Sin City 300. Like some of those movies are still masterpieces by people's standards now. So yeah, just incredible to hear him and see him live. And yeah, I don't know how else to describe it. It was I sent that picture to a lot of people. Like I'm this far away from
Yeah.
Frank Miller right now, and I sent that picture to a lot of people. So uh, it is what it is what it is.
Yeah.
Take that as you will.
Well, right, and then there's going to be a documentary on him. They were talking about that towards the tail end. He had his or the producer or director, whomever that put that together. She was there. Now, of course, with the ongoing writers strike and everything like that, there wasn't a whole lot of promotion or anything like that for it. We did see
And they couldn't even
a
give a
number.
date because of it.
Right, right, exactly. I mean, we did see a number of people there with their SAG-AFTRA shirts on in support and stuff like that. So, I mean, that was very
Yeah, saw that
present
all weekend.
throughout the con, as expected. And so we got the Frank Miller panel, great stuff, and then yeah, the cover artist panel was a great way to kind of wrap the show. It was an excellent format in that they had 5 random covers for each artist. There was no like rhyme or reason to them per se. Like they weren't their best covers, their worst covers, their most popular covers, anything like that. And then they were asked to speak to them and describe their thought process, what they were going for, and that sort of stuff. What was for you? What was the coolest sort of recount that one of the artists had regarding their covers?
I think McFarlane just going through. I mean, listening to him talk first of all it was hilarious. It was almost
Hmm.
like punchline after punchline. I don't know if he meant it like that or I mean, he was probably being really serious. I mean, one of his most famous Batman covers, and he just looked at it. He's like, "Oh yeah, that was deadline draw," and he gave us the fish. He gave us the finger in the mouth, like fish hooked. He's like, and it got all of you. It's one of my most signed books. It's one of my most signed CGC books that I have to sign. Like, there's no anatomy. It's just Batman and his cape and his shadow because it is. And he's like, that was a deadline draw, and
And
I
you
didn't have
all ate
time
it
to do
up.
any anatomy, so I didn't. Yeah, he's like, I didn't have to do anatomy, so I didn't. And what do you know? It is
Hmm.
what it is. And that's just crazy to me, like the creativity to come up with a. I mean, even listening to not just him, but some of the other guys too. Like they get this commission for a comic cover, and they're like, you only get like 3 or 4 sentences about what the book's about.
Hmm.
You might know the character previously, but like from a book standpoint, you don't really know what it's about. You're drawing the character with whatever you're drawing. And they talked a lot about color schemes, simplicity, complexity sometimes if you need to. It was very, very interesting. Like I got a lot out of that panel. Like I'm not an artist, obviously, for anything. Thank God for me, because I'm not that. I'd overthink everything if I had to do it. So every drawing I did would be a deadline draw because I would overthink it until I got to the last hour, and I'd be like, screw it, we're doing it, we're doing this, and that's what I would do. So and they would probably be awful anyway. But yeah, it was just awesome listening to them and their process. But what about you? What was your favorite thing to take away from that panel? Sorry if I stole your thunder on anything there.
No, you're good. I actually liked listening to what Scott Campbell had to say regarding a couple of his covers. One of his more famous covers with Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, is it's got Mary Jane sitting on the couch looking over her shoulder as Peter's jumping out the window, or Spider-Man's jumping out the window to go, save the day again. And he said it was the first time he'd ever drawn her, and it was never even meant to be a comic cover. It was I think he said it was an NYCC exclusive print or something like that. That's how it was supposed to be. And so, and then the editor the story writer, whatever the runner, saw it and was like, no, that's got to be a cover. And so I think he said he had like 2 of the 5 that were chosen for him. I think 3 of them were never actually meant to be covers to begin with. They were meant to be exclusive prints for either SDCC or like NYCC or something like that he would have presumably like on his booth or something like that. And then of course they turn into what some have become iconic comic covers. And so him going through how he thought Mary Jane would look and everything like that, and he goes and he kind of motioned to Todd because Todd had just gone through that spiel on his covers, and he goes, yeah, this is definitely my most signed graded CGC cover is this particular one here. So that was definitely listening to him talk about that and like, oh, this was never even meant to be a cover, and then it was so good that it was taken that way.
And it's just insane because he called it out too. He's like, the main character of the comic is in the background. Mm-hmm. Like Spider-Man's jumping through a window. Yeah, he is an inch wide basically on this comic cover through a window, and Mary Jane is front and center, and it like she's just drinking her coffee or whatever on the couch. It's just insane that that's a comic cover that mm-hmm. took off.
Yeah, I did feel bad for Joe. Okay, go ahead. You think what?
No, you're good. You're good.
Oh, I was going to say I felt bad for Joe because he got shoehorned into about 5 minutes because the moderator was the same one. Yeah, the moderator was the same one from the Frank Miller panel, and I really feel like he kind of interjected himself too much in the cover artist panel and kind of not stole the show, so to speak, but stole time from the panelists to speak on certain things, and then of course ran out of time with Joe's covers, which was unfortunate.
Yeah, and he's such an iconic cover guy, and he ran Marvel. He edited Marvel for a long. He was the editor of Marvel for a long time, mm-hmm. Almost 20 years, I think. So. But just listening to him speak even earlier in the panel about, it's so hard to draw team-ups and full covers and what he was looking for specifically when he looks at a cover and if he sends it back or if he says this one goes, there's so many different things. And even one of his stories was he got a call from somebody that said, you guys are geniuses. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, my comic's the only yellow comic background on the stands this week, and
Yeah.
he's like, great, like he's great. But like what they look for in a comic cover is just so insane to me.
Hmm.
Which I mean, it all makes sense because when you walk into a comic shop and you're looking at a wall of brand new comics, if it doesn't catch your eye when you're glancing, you're
Hmm.
never gonna pick it up
Yeah, you got like
unless you are a
like
like
3 seconds to hook,
yeah.
basically.
So like, because I think Todd said it best. He was just like, I've never heard somebody complain that I picked this comic book up for the cover and I hated the story or whatever. I'd rather
Hmm.
hear that than, oh wait, you don't hear anything else because they didn't pick it up. Like
Hmm. Exactly.
that's the catch. Like they don't pick it up. Like, oh, I picked up this comic. It was a terrible cover, but it was a great story. Nope, you never hear that because they didn't pick it up. So
Exactly. Yeah, so that was an excellent end to our show because we totted off and headed home after that. So, sort of real quick, your closing thoughts on before we jump to Disney, your closing thoughts on San Diego this year.
I mean, I had a lot of fun as always. I mean, disappointed due to the strikes. Hall H was non-existent. I think I mentioned on the last pod, like I was super excited to show you like the Hall H line and oh, this is where everybody lines up and see all the people and blah blah blah. And there was
Hmm.
two wraps of people at max. It just wasn't the same pull. It wasn't the same experience outside for that stuff. The exhibition floor, fantastic. They had so many things, so many artists, so many interactions that could be made. Artist Alley looked great. I think overall, like the feel this year was great. It was just a matter of it felt a little bit more empty because no Hall H, so the exhibition fall like floor was just full. It
Hmm.
was. I did not see. I saw a lot of lines last year. I didn't see any lines like I saw this year.
Yeah.
Like the lines were out of control in some cases. Like I know on Sunday we briefly I went to look for a friend for the Snoopy booth because
Oh yeah.
one of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
friend's wives loves Snoopy,
Hmm.
and it wrapped like it was a 2 hour line.
There were
I
like four
guarantee that was a 2 hour line.
four breaks and like
Yeah,
continuations down the aisle. It was crazy.
yeah. So it was
Insane.
just like it's just dumb. It's just, in my opinion, it's dumb. Like 2 hours to wait in line for stuff is just it's ridiculous for me for a lot of things. But then again, if that's what you're into, that's what you're into. So I
Hmm.
can't blame anybody for it, and I won't ever blame anybody for it. Like I always make fun of you and our buddy Keith, like your stupid minifigures, like those are like you know
Yeah. Hmm.
an inch
Yeah.
and a
No.
half,
Yeah. Hmm.
and I've got 6 inch figures behind me that, and you're like that's so stupid too. So it is what it is. But yeah, if you're into it, you're into it. But like the lines this year around the convention were out of control, and there was a lot more bottlenecks this
Hmm.
year than last year. So, and it just had to do with more people being on the con floor. Even with all the panels, all the offsite stuff, it didn't matter. The floor was packed. So,
Yeah.
but other than that, I mean, still a great show.
Hmm.
You were
Yeah.
recount
Yeah.
for first one.
Yeah. So I mean, I had a lot of fun. Like I said at the beginning, I was glad to have some of the days off in between. I don't know that I could do 4 days in a row of that. I know I definitely would have gotten sick at some point had we been there 4 days in a row. I was fortunate to not catch any
We
con
did
crud,
avoid con crud. We avoided
which I
it.
think, which was nice. But I finding out, kind of right before we went that Friday and Saturday are the big Star Wars days. I was kind of bummed that we obviously missed those. There were a number of artists and authors that I would have liked to have had a chance perhaps to see or meet or whatever. But having said that, the stuff that we did get to do at the show was fun. It was nice getting to explore kind of the far end away from kind of the bigger booths that had the smaller comic artists or comic writers, comic stands, vendors. They had some of the gaming stuff down at the one end, which is cool to walk around. They had a giant like Diablo booth, which was quite imposing. But overall, like my experience was pretty positive. I didn't have the terrible experience like you did at Funkoville on Thursday. Most of my stuff was pretty easy to get to purchase and stuff like that. I got my pins here and there. I got my Buryaga Lives pin from the High Republic folks on Sunday, which was fun. I know a bunch of the High Republic authors were there over the weekend, which is cool. But yeah, just overall, it was enjoyable. The panels were nice, even without a Hall H. Like you said, there were definitely more people. I think having no restrictions this year compared to last year, right? I think definitely allowed more people to come out this go around. So not having a Hall H plus more people probably than last year because it was kind of semi-COVID protocols last year. It did make for pretty big crowds, and we weren't even there on the busiest days. So I can only imagine what Friday and Saturday would have been like. So definitely looking forward to going again in the future. Maybe next year. I don't know. We'll see. See if schedule allows. But I know I'll definitely be trying to get tickets so that we can keep trying to buy them, every other year. So, I mean,
got to be on the returning guest list.
it makes it a little bit easier to get tickets. Not super easy, but at least you got a better chance, anyways. So that's our SDCC kind of finalized, final thoughts. We'll close with our discussion on our trip to Disneyland, which was, a blast, and there are some pretty fun stories, I think. I have at least one to share regarding my interactions with a single First Order officer. But the trek up. So if you visit San Diego, you're an hour and a half from Anaheim. So having an off day made total sense to go to Disney. Did that. I was shocked at how empty it felt on a Saturday.
Yeah.
It wasn't like there weren't people there, but and maybe it's because everything's in one park, and so you've got 20 some odd rides for people to kind of space out to. But compared to Disney World, the wait times were non-existent.
They're manageable. Yeah.
I think the longest wait time we had was like 45 minutes, and that was for Space Mountain. So, so the visit to Black Spire West, basically, which we got to do when we went to Celebration last year, kind of briefly. I know we kind of made it late on that Wednesday that you all went, so we didn't get to spend a whole lot of time there. Didn't do Rise of the Resistance or anything really. I think we just went and got pictures in front of the Falcon, and then Keith went and built his droid with the gimpy leg. So, so it was nice to kind of have a full day there, and especially with the limited crowds. We got to do everything pretty much in Batuu, except for we didn't buy a saber or build a droid.
We didn't build anything, but we did anything else.
I mean, we went to
We've
Oga's.
We've already done those things. We don't need to do it.
Yeah, but that's that's true. Oh yeah, as far as like building a savvy saber or something like that.
Yeah.
Although I do think the next time I take Connor to Disney World or Land, I suppose, we may end up doing a droid, because I think he would have fun doing that.
Well, yeah. He's at the age that it'd be a blast. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. But so we got on the wait list. We got to go to Oga's without a reservation, which was nice. Again, limited crowds. Wait list was very short. Saw our boy DJ Rex, which with the news the other day of Paul Rubens passing, he was the original voice of Rex in the original Star Tours ride, and he now lives on sort of forever in Oga's. So R.I.P. to Rex, to Mr. Rubens. Oga's is fun as always. 2-drink minimum or 2-drink maximum, not minimum. Man, can you imagine a 2-drink minimum there? It would be crazy. Crazy. It would be way more expensive than it already is. But got to go. Did Rise, did Smuggler's Run, which the Smuggler's Run, our Smuggler's Run experience was bumpy.
I was an engineer.
We were both engineers somehow. We had one gunner and 2 engineers. Like I don't know how that worked, but 2 inept pilots, that's for sure.
They were not good.
They did not know their up from down, left from right. I don't even know how our ship didn't just explode. Maybe there isn't like a destruction button, not button, but like a point at which your ship just becomes
it goes into
so
chewy mode. If you're that bad, it goes into chewy mode. So.
Oh, does it? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, Chewie takes over way earlier if you suck at driving. So they weren't terrible, but they were not good.
They weren't good, yeah. So, so my story. I want to do my story, and then we can talk a little bit more about the trip as a whole. But
he's so proud of us, guys. He's so proud of us.
I'm so proud. So it was cool because we actually saw all of the, except for Mando, we saw all of the characters walking around. We saw, the First Order guys. We saw Fennec. We saw, Book of Boba Fett, Boba. There was a First Order officer at like Kylo's shuttle. We didn't see Kylo, I guess. We saw Rey walking around. I forget the mechanic's name that walks around. She's got the rainbow hair. I can't. Her name escapes me, but we saw her walking around. And then we saw, of course, the Force Order Stormtroopers walking around. And I wanted to just get a picture with them, right? Of course. And I'm walking towards them. They're walking towards me. And they, right? Have you seen any, signs of resistance activity? And I was like, no, not yet. And I'm trying to get like a selfie, which I am terrible at selfies apparently because I cut myself completely out of the one with you and I in it.
It wasn't a good one.
So, but I say, no, not yet. We just got here, right? And he's like, all right, well, be sure to let us know if you see anything. I was like, okay, I will. And so we turn to walk away, and the other trooper goes, aren't you a little short to be a Wookiee? And I turn around instinctually and do my, like full on Sherwook Chewie call that I practice. And I got to show it off to Chewbacca in March. And I showed it off to Chewie in March and had this amazing experience with him. And so I totally caught the stormtroopers off guard. Like they were not expecting me at all to do what I did. And the guy who asked, he looks at his trooper buddy and goes, for not being a Wookiee, that was pretty good.
It was fun.
And I'm like,
I laughed.
I'm like,
that was a good time.
You know what? I was proud of that moment. That was a proud moment for me. And so we're walking up to, I think we were going to Ronto Roasters or something like that. And some random person who was standing there goes, yeah, that was actually pretty good. And I was like, my Sherwook practice has paid off.
He is officially a Wookiee. Forget about Obi-Wan. He's going after the Wookiees.
If the Jedi thing doesn't work out, I'm definitely gonna cosplay as a Wookiee. But it made me think, because I had turned right, and I mean, I did have a beard, but I'm thinking, what prompted him to say that line, right? Like, what about me made him say, go with Wookiee, right? He could have, and I'm kind of fuzzy, I'm kind of furry, I've been told to take off my sweater a few times, and so it was just hilarious the way he asked, and then me immediately turning around and Wookiee roaring at him was that made the whole trip worth it. Just that 30-second interaction with them, and that's the cool thing about Disney, right? Is you have those moments of like magic, quote unquote magic, where where those cast members, those actors, get to have fun and play, and then when the guest there it is, when the guest plays back at it, and they get that kind of interaction, like that's got to be so much fun for them, because I'm sure they get a lot of times they'll say something and people will just be like, have their phone up, which, yeah, I did, but at least I played along with it,
Yeah.
which was fun. So, yeah,
He's so proud right now, guys. You guys have no idea. He's so proud. He loved
that's
that
my
moment so
story.
much.
It's so good, but
My
yeah, I
proudest
mean
moment from Disney, I beat you on Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters. Sorry. Sorry about you.
you did, and I think I had a broken blaster.
Oh, it was broken. Yeah.
I think that was the problem. I About the yeah, no, it was broken. Um,
He doesn't like losing, guys. He doesn't like losing. What can I tell you?
no. But yeah, so I mean, the trip to Disney was I mean, that was pretty much the extent of our visit to Batu. We did pop into Doc Andars briefly, but at that point we were kind of our bags well, no, we were getting ready to pack our bags, and so we kind of knew that space was limited, so we didn't really buy any big souvenirs or
There
anything
was
like that.
every store I went into. I'm like, "Oh, I could use these action figures, but I should not get these action figures right now."
Well, your
So,
comment kept, you'd look up the price of those 3 packs or whatever, and you'd look at it and you go, it's only selling for like 20 over retail. And you would say there's plenty on the shelves, so they're clearly not selling very well, right? Like everything was very
it's fully stocked. Fully stocked there.
which it's funny because I know the couple times we've been in Florida, it's kind of been the opposite. The stores, oh yeah, the stores are kind of picked over and everything like that. But I mean, there were like I would have loved to have taken. There was a BD1 like droid builder, like if you'd gone to the droid
Oh
workshop,
yeah.
right, like a remote control BD1 in Doc Ondars, and I was like, oh, that would be perfect because Connor and I are building our Lego version of it right now, and we're actually really enjoying that. So I was like, oh, this would be the perfect thing to complement that. And well, naturally, there's no space for it, and I'm not shipping it home. I'm not doing any of that stuff. So despite I think what we would have liked to do, which is perhaps buy a few
Spend
things,
more money. No, I'm just kidding.
we thought. I mean, when you go to Disney, that's the one thing about Disney, man. They are good at separating you from your money, and you go, yeah, you know what? I'm having a good time doing this. Um, so, which we did again.
We would have.
Uh,
We absolutely would have.
but they did have, speaking of Star Wars collectibles, they had the Disney 100 coins. So they do have, for anybody going to Disneyland, if you're doing that and you're listening also, and you're looking for a cool collectible outside of Space Mountain, wasn't it? As we were coming out,
Yeah.
kind of
Going
the
out the
exit,
exit. Yeah.
there was like a coin machine on the one side, and they had 4 Disney 100 Star Wars coins, uh, which are actually really cool. They're kind of pricey. It was like 20. I think it was 20
$20
bucks
for yeah.
for 4 of them.
Yeah.
But they're like, I mean, they're actually weighted coin. Like, they're nice. They're cool collectible, especially for the 100th anniversary celebration. So it's not like we went without any Star Wars collectibles from Disney. So we did get that. But
Yeah, we can't go home with nothing.
right, exactly. Now, I I was going to ask your opinion, and this will kind of be our last thoughts, I think, on Disney, unless you have something else to add. But we've been to Disneyland now at least 2, 3 times. Been to Disney World a handful of times. Which park do you like? Like which experience do you like more? If you had to pick
I
one.
enjoy Disney World.
Okay.
Look, I'll go to Disney World. More parks, more stuff to do. My favorite rides still happen to be down in Disney World at well, outside of Hollywood Studios, having Star Wars, like Galaxy's
Hmm.
Edge and everything else, Black Spire. My favorite individual ride is probably
Flight of Passage.
yeah, the Avatar Flight of Passage in Animal Kingdom. Like the ride is so good. I just really
Mm-hmm.
enjoy it. My favorite classic ride still is Pirates of the Caribbean.
Hmm.
I like Disney World one better, just because I grew up with Pirates. I grew up with Pirates with Johnny Depp and all that stuff. Like Johnny Depp was not in the one at Disneyland, so a little different.
He
Different
is
experience.
kind of. He is kind of. The mannequin is
Just yeah,
terrible.
yeah, I understand. It's different.
The mannequin is worse.
It's not well done.
No, I will say that I obviously the castle is the biggest
Oh,
draw at Disney. Like it's not even the same. Like you come around the corner on Main Street in Disneyland, and you're like after being in Disney World, and you're like the
where's the castle?
and I
That's it.
understand why. I get why, but it is very underwhelming. Having said that, I like the fact that you have basically two parks in one, right? So you've got Magic Kingdom and most parts of Hollywood Studios in one park, right? And then of course you got California Adventure Crossway, which we didn't go to because we didn't do the park hopper thing. And so you get pieces of Epcot, right? Because you get Radiator Springs Racer, which is test track and stuff like that. So really, the only thing you're missing is the Animal Kingdom aspect of it, and so I will say that I like the bubble of Disney World more. Like I like that, just kind of you're in Disney, so to speak. But
Yeah,
for the money, for like the just vast number of rides, because they had Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which is also at Hollywood Studios at Disneyland. Just like the sheer number of attractions that are in one park for what it costs, because it's roughly the same price as a single park ticket
yeah,
is Disney World, right? So for the money, I like Disneyland. It also seemed like most things were working in Disneyland. Like you didn't have a whole bunch of rides broken down, which was good. Although rides did go down the first thing in the
early in the
morning
day. Yeah,
when we got there, but we rode. I think I counted like 11 or 12 attractions that we rode, and we only like lightning laned 3 or 4 of them. Because we did have the Genie
yeah,
Plus thing, but so
yeah. I mean, the
I
only
did
rides we
like.
stood in line for really were Space Mountain and Indiana Jones. I think those are the only two we really stood in line for. Everything else
Uh,
was like a 10 or
yeah,
10
Haunted
minute
Mansion.
wait.
Haunted Mansion was like it was that tweener one, but
Oh,
that was the
yeah.
first.
Haunted
That was
Mansion's a
first
little
ride of the
longer.
day, but
Yeah, we had a reservation after that, so it all worked out.
right. Well, and to your point about Pirates of the Caribbean, I actually liked I will say the smell is different, and for anybody who's been to Disney World, I think you probably know what I'm saying, like what I mean by this. But
Yeah.
when you go into Pirates in Disney World, there is a smell that is
Hmm.
reminiscent, like it makes you think of Pirates of the Caribbean. It's not like an offensive smell, but it's that dank sort of. It smelled like to an extent, it smelled kind of like our hotel room. Um, but I did like that in Disneyland. You kind of start out in the bayou, right? Because it's in New Orleans Square, and you actually go by a restaurant, and we had some little
Yeah.
kid waving at us the whole time.
That's the part I'm like, I could do without that. That's the thing I can't.
But I feel like you got some extra drops in it because they had to get you to the rest of the ride, so you got a couple
Mm.
more, dinks and dunks.
There
But
was there was an extra drop for sure. At least
yeah,
one extra big drop. Yeah.
but the Johnny Depp mannequin was pretty awful. So, and like I said, we didn't do California Adventures, so we didn't get to do like Avengers Campus or anything like that, which would have had some additional rides that would have been cool, but we decided to take that park hopper price and put it towards like, drinks and food and other stuff. So,
Just Ogus. Just put right into Ogus.
so I'm going to take the diplomatic route and say that I like both of them. Like I like aspects of both. But, gun to my head and I have to pick one, I'm probably still going to pick Disney World just because. Also the fireworks. You don't get fireworks every night.
We left early. We didn't. Yeah, Disneyland. You only get them Friday, Saturday, and we left early, so we did not see the fireworks.
Oh, right. So we would have gotten the fireworks that night. Oh well.
We were good.
We'll say
we had lots of stuff to do.
Yeah, we had an hour. Oh, we did. Oh, that's the last thing. We got In-N-Out Burger. It was my first time at In-N-Out Burger on the way back from Disneyland. Which, the burger was good. The fries were atrocious. So.
Left some to be desired. Just something like an actual potato in there. That'd be good.
Yeah, somebody was a little hard on the fryer making those fries. So, anything else that you want to add to the trip, the last couple days of the trip?
Nope, can't think of anything other than San Diego Airport just needs to figure out how to make a bigger terminal because there's not enough space up there. People get delayed. It happened again. I told you about it, and then it happened again. Not as bad, not near as bad, but it was still real rough. And that terminal just waiting on our flight because of other delays. So it was tough we couldn't sit down at the restaurant. Lines were long. There was really nowhere to sit. We got seats. Because
I had TSA. I got through early and snagged a couple spots, and then lied to somebody and told them that my brother was off getting food while you were getting pat down at security or something like that. So,
yeah, did the whole works on me that time. Really
Indeed.
Weird. But yeah, I think that's. But yeah, if they could figure that out, can you just get rid of all the weather delays ever and just get your flights out on time? Or make a bigger terminal because that would help too. So.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think we both agreed that if we do the Sunday part of the show, that we're flying home Monday because getting home at 2 a.m. was rough. So, but yeah, excellent trip overall. And with that, we're going to bring this episode to a close. So if you do enjoy the content, please do consider sharing, subscribing, liking, all that fun stuff. Be sure to follow us on our social channels, which will be linked in the show notes. For Jedi John, I'm Obi Sean, and until next time.
May the Force be with you.